Hi everyone, this video is about Sir George Burton Hunter. I know that I have covered some information about Sir George in a previous video, but I thought I would make a little video about him on his own. So many of you will be more than familiar with his name, connected to Swan Hunters and of course the hospital on the green. The Hunter name is still seen today on many of our older buildings, and hopefully this video will tell you a little bit more about him. Like many well-known people of Wallsend, George was not born here. He was born in Sunderland on the 19th of December 1845. He was the third son of Thomas Hunter, ship owner, and Elizabeth, the daughter of William Rowntree, master mariner. It seems that shipping played a big part in his life through family connections from a very early age. In 1851, he was living in Bishop Wearmouth with his family, which included his brothers and sisters, Mary aged 12, Thomas aged 10, Elizabeth aged 3, and William aged 5 months. I don't really know much about his school life, as I haven't been able to find any information out during my research other than that he seems to have been privately educated. So I can only really move on now to his working life. Obviously people started working much younger in the 1800s than they do today, many leaving school, if they were lucky enough to attend school, well before the age of 16. So it's no surprise to find that George Hunter started his career at the age of just 13 years old. He started work in the office of a Mr. Thomas Meek. I don't think that I would have been able to start work quite so young. My mind would have been on toys and games and music and books and probably boys at that age. So it does show how times have changed when it comes to working ages from then to now. He later went on to work in the shipbuilding yard of Pyle and Hay and Company in Monk Wearmouth. William Pyle was his cousin, so I would imagine this helped him to get this job. In 1861 it is known that he was an apprentice ship's carpenter, and in around 1868 he moved to Glasgow to work for the company Robert Napier and Sons. It seems he was not there long, and soon after he moved back to Sunderland, and by 1871 he was the manager of an iron shipbuilding company. He had formed a partnership with Samuel Peter Austin Jr., and they were trading under the name of Austin and Hunter. It is no doubt that this job gave Mr. Hunter a bigger profile in shipbuilding and helped him to make him well known on the north side of the Tyne too. On the 14th or the 15th of April in 1873 he married Annie Hudson. Sometimes dates can differ on old documents, and this is one of those occasions where some records state the 14th and others say the 15th. Annie was the daughter of Charles Hudson of Whitby and niece of the railway king George Hudson. Just as a little side note, George Hudson, it seems, had inherited a large sum of money from an uncle which he had invested in North Midland Railway shares. There's a lot more to his story than that, but of course this video isn't about him, and I just wanted to add that little extra bit of information into the video. George and Annie were married at St Mary the Virgin in Whitby. George is listed as being 27 years old and Annie as being 28. During their marriage, George and Annie had 4 daughters and 2 sons. 4 of those children are Alice, George, Thomas and Nora. Haven't actually been able to find out the names of their other 2 children, but maybe someone out there knows them and can let me know. This photo is said to be of both George and Annie Hunter, but I can't confirm that it is of Annie, but it does make sense that it is, as the 2 photos are together and, as far as I'm aware, came from the same place. In around 1879 the Austin and Hunter partnership was dissolved, and Burton then became the manager of a new firm known as C.S. Swan and Hunter on Tyneside. By 1893 the firm was the largest shipbuilder on Tyneside. Swan Hunters was certainly well known around the world, and the name remained the same for many, many years. George moved his family to Wallsend around the same time that he joined forces with C.S. Swan. the family moved into Weston Villa in Wallsend. Weston Villa is on the boundary of Wallsend and Newcastle, and was one big house at the time that the family lived there. They did have some servants when they lived there too, which was quite normal for people living in larger houses at that time. The property is still there now, but I think it has been made into 2 homes, not just the one, but I'm not 100% certain on that, so can't confirm that. The family lived there for 10 years before moving to Jesmond to a place called the Willows, where he remained until his death. George Hunter was involved in many things in Wallsend, not just the well-known shipyard. He would often be found laying foundation stones or taking part in similar ceremonies. And he was also responsible for the building of the Wallsend Cafe in 1883, the first place in Wallsend to be lit with electric lights. It was opened on December the 19th in 1883, and I wonder just how many Wallsend residents were scared of the electric lights at the time. I'm sure many would have been, as it would have been new, and new things were often viewed with a bit of fear or worry for their safety. The area where the cafe stood was often referred to as Cafe Corner. We mostly now refer to this as Greenways, but the building has been used for many other things too. Grafton's clothes shop was once there, for example, also Books and Oxfam in later years. The photo on the screen at the moment is from the time of the laying of the foundation stone of Wallsend Town Hall. Now, of course, George Burton Hunter didn't actually lay the foundation stone. It was, I think, Joseph Duffy. But this photo shows J.B. Hunter allegedly as the man in the centre of the photo. It's not quite in the centre. It is from where I'm looking at it on my screen, but perhaps on yours it won't be. But the man in the suit with the big white beard. George was also a member of Wallsend School Board, and he was elected Mayor of Wallsend in 1902 to 1903. And like many other well-known people of Wallsend, he did own a lot of land, which in time was given to the town for other purposes. St Luke's Church in Wallsend was built on land that he once owned. In 1911 he was made Freeman of the Borough of Wallsend, and in 1918 he became Sir G.B. Hunter. In 1914 Mr. Hunter bought Wallsend Hall and the land connected to it. There's often been a bit of confusion over this story, as people have often thought that he lived there, but he didn't. He lived at the Willows in Jesmond at the time he bought the hall and never had any plans to live there because he was perfectly happy where he was. After the purchase of the property, he gave the property to the Borough of Wallsend, the land to add to the Burn Closes, which he had already given to the borough, and to extend the public park. The land in question was the hall grounds, which had previously been the private garden belonging to Wallsend Hall. Now, the picture on the screen at the moment you probably won't be able to read, so I shall read it. It says, a letter was read to Wallsend Town Council from Dr. G.B. Hunter, I'm not sure why it says doctor, but there you go, in connection with the conveyance of the hall and grounds to the authority. He is quite willing that the hall should be used as a museum, picture gallery, library, lecture hall, classrooms, or municipal committee or reception rooms for the mayor and the corporation. Dr. Hunter, again, I'm not sure why it says Dr. Hunter, I've not heard that before, pointed out the hall grounds are 10.5 acres, and Alderman O'Hanlon moved that thanks be forwarded to Mr. Hunter for this magnificent gift. His wife seems to have been just as keen to help the town as well, having helped to set up Wallsend Nursing Association in 1894. But I have not really looked into any of the things that she was involved in. George died at his home in Jesmond. Excuse me. George died at his home in Jesmond in January 1937, aged 91. He is buried in St Andrew's Cemetery, Newcastle upon Tyne, alongside his wife and a daughter. This is another grave that I would like to find. I have seen a photo of it and did recently visit the cemetery, but was unable to actually locate it. So this is a task for me to do later this year. I don't have any details of the funeral, but what you can see on the screen at the moment is just a newspaper article which would have been printed later, as this would be the probate details. So it basically says Hunter, OBE, Sir George Burton Hunter, Knight of the Willows, Clayton Road, Jesmond, Newcastle upon Tyne, died 21st of January 1937, and that the money was to be given to George Ernest Hunter, shipbuilder, and Thomas Charles Hunter, physician. And I believe that is effects of, is that 152,000 or 15,000? Yeah, it could be 152,000. 11 shillings and 11 pence, I presume that is. I'm not very good with old money, so somebody can put me right on that one. George was a very well known and a very well respected man, but there is still actually very little detail of his life to be found out about. But I do hope that you have enjoyed what I have been able to tell you, a very small insight into his life, and that it does make you know that some of the things that he did for Wallsend and some of the things that he was connected to with Wallsend. And I hope that you have enjoyed this little video, and thank you for watching.